Good evening. Welcome to Cooking with the Cop. Tonight we're going to be making a baked mackerel over red bell pepper and preserved lemon. Now it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to make preserved lemon. So if you don't have that, I'm going to show you a way to make preserved lemon on the fly. It just takes a few minutes in the microwave. Well, before we begin, you know what that means. It's wine time. Tonight, we're going to have a 2016 Syrah from Palencia, which is out of New Mexico. Had the opportunity to have this wine before during a online Zoom wine tasting. And of course, when we have our wine here in this household, we drink only out of Zolto glasses. A lot of dark cherry in this wine. Very good, got some smoke flavored in it, and definitely your dark cherry. A little salty as it touches either side of the mouth. If you haven't ever done a wine tasting before or had the opportunity to learn about tasting wines, I definitely suggest that there's a lot of different opportunities out there to do so, especially nowadays online, to do Zoom online wine tasting. But once this pandemic is over and you have an opportunity to try a wine tasting live, you can learn quite a bit about the different wines that we have the opportunity to sample all over the world. Alright, so before we begin, this particular dish requires our oven to be set at 500 degrees, which is pretty high. But we're going to be baking this fish pretty quickly. It's only going to be in the oven for about maybe 12 to 15 minutes at most, depending on, of course, the size of the mackerel that you use. So let's go ahead and get our oven set to 500 degrees and we'll begin. You're going to want to make sure that your rack is going to be in the middle of the oven for this one. You don't want it too low or too high just because of the temperature of this fish. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is make our preserved lemon. So preserved lemon is typically your Meyer lemon cut in half. It is then crushed by hand, put in a jar with a bunch of salt in it, a preservative, right? And then sealed and left to sit in that juice and salt liquid for about 6 to 8 weeks. Of course, we don't have that kind of time right now, so I'm going to show you how to make preserved lemon on the fly. So go ahead and take your Meyer lemon and peel off the zest and do your very best at not getting any of the pith. And the pith is this, I'm going to show you here, is this white part on the peel. We only want the orange part. So if you get some of this pith, you can take your knife and just gently scrape it off. You might still have a little bit of white on it, but you want to get as much of it off as you can. But it's really important to have a nice, sharp knife. Okay, and this is going to be the rind that I'm going to use. So you want to get about 6 to 8 of them, or as much as one little Meyer lemon will produce. Okay, once you have all of your peel, you're going to combine that in just a little jar here, and I've got half a teaspoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of salt, and we're just going to add a little bit of water to this. And what you're going to do is you're going to microwave this for about 50 seconds or so until all of the the water is evaporating. And then we're going to mince the pieces and do it one more time. So we'll just drink wine while we wait. All right. Now I'm just going to take this peel out. Okay, and it's pretty flimsy now. Really, really soft. And now what we're going to do is we're going to mince it. Okay. Once it's minced, we're going to put it back in the solution. Again, we don't have too much water or liquid left in this from our first nuke. So what I want to do is just take a little bit of this lemon, just squeeze some juice from it, a little bit more, about a teaspoon or so of lemon juice. So now I've got a combination of lemon juice, sugar, and salt, and a bunch of minced peel. We're going to put it in the microwave for another 50 seconds, and I won't be able to hold it by my hand the second time around. It's going to be too hot. Okay. Here's our preserved lemon. We'll set this off to the side. So this recipe traditionally has green pitted olives. My kids hate green olives, so I am not going to add that, but you are more than welcome to. It's the correct way of doing it, but for the purposes of this recipe, no green olives. All right, so let's go ahead and get our pan up on our stove here. Okay, so we're going to take a half of a red onion. It should yield, because this onion's the size that it is, it's going to yield about a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup. We're going to get this chopped up. You chop these onions up into little tiny pieces. You can keep it kind of coarsely chopped. It's really up to you. Stove going, or this cooktop going real quick. And I'm going to put my olive oil, about 2-3 tablespoons in it. And we're going to start to get that heated up. So we have our red onion there. That's about close to a cup, so that's good. We're going to take the seeds and the rib out of the, these are ribs, out of the bell pepper. Okay. And we're going to also cut this one up as well, kind of in the same manner as the red onions. It's really, really important to have a nice sharp knife. I don't know if I've said this before, but each time I am done using my knife, after each time that I'm done using it, cooking for the evening, I sharpen it. So I've got a little handheld sharpener that I run it through 2 or 3 times, and we call it good. This is a Powden brand knife. It is Asian, so it's a little bit thinner, and the angle that the blade is sharpened on is a different angle than say your European blades. So if you are going to sharpen your own knives by hand, you want to make sure that you have the correct sharpener for the style of knife that you have. So Asian knives and the European knives, thicker metal for the European, and the angle is greater, whereas the Asian knife, the angle is smaller, if you would. Got the olive oil here, it's getting that nice sheen. It tells me that it's ready to go. And so I'm going to put this in here. you're gonna hear a nice, gentle sizzle. Hear that? Not spurting everywhere. I'm not getting burned to death. Again, I cook with gas, and gas heat can, or flame can heat up your cooking utensils, pots, pans, and all that stuff pretty quickly. So if you are working with flame, it's always a good idea to start it off on low or simmer and then adjust it accordingly. Also gonna add some salt, just general salt, nothing fancy. And we'll get some pepper here. Okay, while that is cooking, we're going to take some flat leaf parsley, maybe just a handful, and then we're going to chop that up, because by the time we're done chopping, it's only going to equate to about, maybe a tablespoon, a little bit more than that, of parsley. We don't want it to overwhelm the flavor of our base. It's just there to accent, give it an accent flavor and give it some color. This tells me that we need to put that that preserved onion, preserved onion, what am I thinking? Preserved lemon that we made. You can go ahead and shut off your heat. Mix that lemon around. And then go ahead and add your flat leaf parsley. We're going to add your green pitted olives, then now would also be the time. So that is what that is going to look like, or should look like, when it's done. Okay. All right, everybody. Here we have our 4 mackerel fillets. Now, if you're lucky enough to find whole mackerel, that is going to be the best, because then you can take what we just made, this concoction of bell pepper and onions, and you can stuff the mackerel, the whole mackerel, with that. You cut open the cavity, stuff it in there, fold it over, and then bake it that way. And that's really, really good. But not every place has not everyone can get whole mackerel. I certainly couldn't find it. Every now and then we can find it places, but I couldn't find whole mackerel this time of year. So I had to get it from the specialty Asian section in our grocery store. This mackerel, however, is from Norway, so this is a Norwegian mackerel. It is a fishier type smelling fish. You know, if you're a big fish fan, you know that certain fish like tuna and salmon versus mackerel and some of these other fish have different, I would say, strengths of odor of fish, and this is a little bit stronger, has a stronger odor for fishiness, if you would. I'm sure that was all technical. All right, so you're going to pat these dry. You're going to take your remaining tablespoon of olive oil, and you're going to just kind of line your rimmed baking sheet with that. Take some pepper, sprinkle it over the tops of these fish fillets, flip them over. You know me and my Mediterranean sea salt. So I ground it myself, throw it on there. You don't have to use a lot of salt. It is a fish. This particular fish lives in the sea, so it naturally has sodium in it. Okay. Now you're going to take our red bell pepper and onion and preserved lemon, put it on the pan. Okay, just a thin layer. Now go ahead and put these on with the skin side up. Okay, our oven just chimed, so it lets me know now that it's at 500 degrees. Go ahead and get our mackerel in there. Set our timer for about 10 minutes. Hang tight as while this bakes for about 10 minutes. We're going to make a caprese salad. I'm going to show you the American version of it. The Italian version of caprese salad is actually made with arugula and doesn't have any balsamic vinegar or anything on it. It's just tomatoes, mozzarella, arugula, salt, pepper, and just a little bit of olive oil on it. So we're going to do the other version, which is the tomato, mozzarella, and basil with a balsamic vinegar and oil dressing. Welcome back. So we're going to make a caprese salad. I call it the American version because in Italy, like I said before, they use arugula as opposed to the basil, and they also use cow's milk mozzarella or mozzarella, which is what we're using. We're going to use the cow's milk mozzarella, but I'm sure you've heard buffalo mozzarella. We're not using buffalo or bison based cheese. And I'm also going to use a balsamic vinegar as well, which they typically don't. I'm also going to switch it up and do something a little fancy today. You've seen me use this before. This is a Cypress black lava sea salt. It's from the Spice and Tea Exchange in Ashland, Oregon. So we're going to do that. So, all right, first of all, I use Roma tomato. You can use other tomatoes. It doesn't matter. You can use beefsteak and fresh tomato from the vine. It doesn't matter. But I use Roma. Roma's Italian, so I use Roma tomato. For this, I just slice off the top where the stem was at. I don't worry about the base. And then I like to cut mine lengthwise. And you want it about, I would say, 1/4 of an inch at the very most. You don't want it too thin because then it's just flimsy. You don't want it too thick because you don't want to be cutting the tomatoes with a knife to try and eat it. You keep your knife wet, so keep your knife nice and wet when you cut your mozzarella. Okay. Depending on the size of your mozzarella ball that you have, it might be really big or it might be really small, but you want to try and get your slices of cheese about the same size as your tomato. You're just going to pinch off a little bit of your basil, put it on top of the mozzarella there, stack it with another piece of tomato, okay, and then top it off with one more piece of tomato. Take your olive oil, just a little drizzle. Balsamic vinaigrette, again, be very, very careful with this. Right over the top. In case you're watching this, if you notice, I just cracked my own peppercorn over the top. And last but not least, some black lava sea salt. There you have it. Caprese salad. Super simple. Okay, well the timer is going off, so that means it's time to check the mackerel. There we go. Look at that. All right. So there you have it. The mackerel dish. Gotta finish off with a little glass of wine here before I go. All right, thanks again for watching, and stay fit, stay safe. Talk to you later.